All right, I'm going note free tonight. I absolutely have no notes prepared. Matter of fact, I don't even need to open that. Um, we're doing the topic of transformation. And before we have a bunch of people think we're talking about Optimus Prime and the Autobots, I'm talking about transforming, as in Romans 12:2, where he says, "Be not conformed to the world, but transformed by the renewal of your mind." Which brings up something cool that I found. There was a study done by about 20 different specialists, neurologists, psychologists, doctors. It was a $1.9 billion study that they did over the course of like 8 to 10 years, 40 separate studies. And what they did was they took a bunch of children from the ages of 5 and below, and they gave them questions, I guess in the form that kids could answer or something. And I can't go into details on all 40 studies because there's way too many. But the overall conclusion of this was that they found that children were hardwired from birth to believe in a creator and an afterlife. And that when they got older, that actually the non-belief in God had to be taught to them by somebody. So I thought about this, and be not conformed, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Well, the renewal of your mind to what? To like it was when you were 1 to 5 years old. And then you think about Matthew, where he says that we should be childlike. And it all connects dots all together. I thought that was pretty interesting. So, well, other than that, how would you explain transformation as far as a biblical sense to somebody who was wondering?
Well, people transform different ways, okay? And we see this uh, happen differently for different people. I don't know him, but I know of somebody that was a Bible teacher that talks about how he doesn't feel like he has a immediate transition or transformation, but it happened over a process of time until all of a sudden he realized he was a Christian. He realized he believed. He
Right.
he had come to the knowledge that he thought that the Bible was true. That happened first. It was an intellectual thing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Once he got past that, then he realized he was actually a Christian. And I think C.S. Lewis had a similar story to that, to where he had this transformation, and we think that when we hear the word transformation, we need to understand. I think it's a little bit helpful to understand the word behind it. If you look up that word, it's like metanoia in the Greek, and we get the word metamorphosis from that word. And the reason that's important, and I don't usually like to talk about Greek words like that, but it's important because it's a lot more than we think of when we think of transform. You know, you mentioned Transformers, where they go from a car to a robot, or
Which is the bad type of transforming, by the way, because they're transforming to conform.
okay, maybe that may be true, but the point is that transformation, metamorphosis, we think of that as like a butterfly going from uh, a a worm-like thing, to this beautiful butterfly. Christy took a picture of a blue monarch the other day, and it was just stunning. And so you get from this worm thing that is ugly and fat and
Yeah.
to this beautiful iridescent colored blue monarch. It's just beautiful, and I don't think I'd realized how beautiful they are. Uh, anyway, that's what we're doing. We're transforming into something new. And so, from a biblical standpoint, Jesus said it that we must be born again. And
Right.
so, this is a new birth. This is a new thing. This is us being born of the Spirit. And so, we are although we're not completely transformed, that won't happen until either Jesus returns or we die.
Right.
Which, I'm just speaking for me, the way I live my life and the way things happen, I'll probably die before Jesus returns, even if he's coming quickly.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, there's all, I got a lot of stories.
Well, you said two things in there that really hit me. First of all, you mentioned the being born again, which plays right back into what I was talking about in the very beginning about renewing your mind and going back to that 1 to 5 year old. Like being born again kind of describes that also. But the other thing you said was the how long the transformation takes. And I was talking to somebody, I believe it was one of the girls in the shipping office out at work, but I was talking about how the transformation isn't something that you get saved, you're transformed, done. I told her I think that it's usually a case of from that point until Jesus returns. I think we're being transformed the entire time.
That's true.
Because I'll notice that every great once in a while I'll be doing something and one of my old bad habits creeps in.
So,
And I have to,
yeah.
you know,
So to
don't
be
do that.
perfectly clear, most theologians will try to put a distinction between, and a theologian, just to let everybody know, that's someone who studies God. Okay, so that's what a theologian
through
is.
through lots of years of schooling.
Yeah. So they will try to say that there's a distinction between being transformed initially or being saved and being sanctified, which is a process.
Right.
Okay, and that process is never ending it's until it ends, however that happens.
It's not over till it's over.
Right. But I talked about these other people that had these intellectual hangups that where they transformed over a period of time and then all of a sudden they're believers. It didn't happen that way with me. It happened like that. Okay. Now, it was overnight. I say that with a snap, but it was. I knew. I knew what was going on. I knew. I really thought I was going to die or something. I don't know what it was. I just had this overwhelming feeling of guilt and shame and the fact that I was going to die. And all of a sudden, Jesus saved me. I don't know how else to say it, because it isn't anything that I did. That's just,
I think it's interesting also that when it happens, before that, you could think of several times of thinking about life or death situations. You're like, oh, I don't, got to steer clear of the death situation, stuff like that. After you get saved, you don't think about death. Not as much anyway. It's like somebody mentions somebody, you could die tomorrow. Okay. I'm not worried about it now.
well,
I mean, I'm not saying you don't want to survive and you don't have the survival instincts, but you're not worried about it as much.
I tended to be one of those rednecks that wasn't too worried in the first place. So,
I think my older brother was that way too. I think somebody dared him one time to climb to the top of the bridge over there going towards Strang and jump off, and he did. So I think he was one of those types too that wasn't really too worried about it to begin with. But now onto another note. We're always finding instances where like science and psychology and philosophy and everything, we find out that they go hand in hand with the Bible a lot of times, where people thinks that they explain away the Bible, they don't. But Back into those little things I was studies I was finding, there was two that really stood out, and I believe the doctor's name was Newberg. Everybody, and this is stuff that people can look up. They can just type in a few phrases of what I'm saying, and it'll come up on Google or whatever. But he did a study of with using MRI machines and fMRI. I'm not even sure I know what fMRI is, but
I don't know.
anyway, it's a mental imaging study where they would do things and they would map a person's brain. And Dr. Newberg is the one that found out that before, during, and after, and I think he's the one that did this one, spiritual activities up to the point of spiritual surrender, that he's the one that noticed the shifting of the activity center going from the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex, where so basically it was the brain shifting away from anxiety, stress, and depression towards the peace, joy, and comfort, and that became the most active part. You pair that with a study done by Dr. Lisa Miller. Yeah, there's a name they can look up. She did an MRI, fMRI study on people like that, on people who was not spiritual, and people who lived sustained spiritual lives. She found out that the non-spiritual, the amygdala and stuff, the stress and anxiety, that portion of the brain physically, not just a thought, physically would thin over time. And a lot of the other parts of the brain would too. The people who live sustained spiritual lives, that part of their brain stopped changing. It stayed the same thickness over the course of this 10-year study, and the prefrontal cortex got thicker. So this is not just your mind changing mentally, this is your mind changing physically.
Your brain.
Yes.
There's
your brain,
I want to make a
yes, your
distinction
brain.
between a mind and a brain,
Right,
because there is.
brain. But this is your brain changing not just mentally but physically. You pair that with Romans 12:2, and it looks like, that's pretty much correlating with the Bible, proving that the Bible doesn't counter it and it doesn't counter the Bible.
I'll have to look in that. By the way, FRMI is functional MRI. So they're looking.
I think I actually knew
that.
Yeah.
So blood has iron in it, and they can
Right.
actually measure blood flow.
That's how they can
with
tell
an
which
MRI.
centers is lighting up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think I actually knew. I used to watch a lot of House, so I think I knew that, but
Yeah, I don't
I'm
like
gonna
that.
say I knew that.
I don't like that guy. So
That guy was a little bit anti-religion, but he always figured the problem out.
I didn't.
Well, the only other doctor show that I had to watch was Becker.
What?
Becker, Beckerer. Just in case it sounded like I said something bad. Becker. It was
Becker. Yeah, I got you.
Ted Danson. He was a doctor.
Huh.
It was a late night sitcom that was on, and he was real good like House. He always figured a problem out, but he was comical about it too. So instead of being serious and comical.
Yeah.
And House, that wasn't even his real voice, by the way. That was. If you hear him outside of that, his voice is very much different, high pitched in British or something for some foreign. So, I'm getting off of my transformation there, though. Anyway, what I really wanted to do was really stress the about the transformation. I think it best explains to people that think we act certain ways, that think we act self-righteous or something, which I hope, I haven't had anybody tell me that they think I act self-righteous, because I'm always just listening and, following the conversation the best I can and putting my 2 cents in here and there where I know it's not pushing or whatever. But I know a lot of Christians tend to use language that does make them sound self-righteous. I think it's because of the transformation process. I don't know how to say it. I don't know if I want to say that there's the human response to coping with the transformation. Because I think we've still got that human side of us that has all these bad habits, I guess, if we want to say it that way.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people will, or I've seen some instances, I'll say that, of people who try to fight that transformation just a little bit.
Right. And so Romans 7 talks about this battle that goes on. And some people try some teachers will try to say, well, this is the battle of your old self versus your new self. This is how you were, but this is how you are now. You're your new self. So you've been remade. But I see myself in that battle that's in Romans chapter 7. And I see it us at war with our flesh because we do. I mean, we all have desires. I mean, for
Yeah.
example, we get hungry. I just ate something a little bit ago. I get
Yeah.
hungry. My wife gets hungry. There's nothing wrong with that. It's something we need. Now we can overdo it, and that's a whole nother subject.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
But the same thing with anything. We need medicines for certain things. We need and then there's certain things like, well, anyway, I'll get off on a tangent, but you get the point. The point
Right.
is that we do have stuff that we need, and sometimes that can be overblown. We need relationship. We need
Right.
we need other things, and those can become bad.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the bad, I am going to go back to the Transformers thing and use it as an example. The Transformers, the Autobots, and the Decepticons. The reason I say that is because transformation's not just a one-way thing. Because as you grow up, the influences that you are around, the people you hang out with, it's a transformation process the other way too. They can take you from being in a good place and transform you into being this completely different person that's not who you want to be. So, hopefully that would help explain transformation a little bit better. You go from this child who's innocent to either hanging out with the good crowd or hanging out with the bad crowd. And who you become throughout your time up to an adult, that's a transformation. That's
Yeah,
that's the
that's
same that's
true.
the same type of transformation that we're talking about from the Bible, because it's shaping your reality
Right.
by who you hang out with and stuff like that. Your
Right.
reality is being formed.
And think about this for a kid. Think about when that happens. Depending on their situation, but generally somewhere around high school, you start seeing maybe a little bit, maybe in the middle of middle school, but in that range, there within a few years, they're going to set who they're going to become and what they're going to do.
Right.
Well, that happened to me after I turned about 12 years old or so. Some things started happening, and I was headed down the wrong path.
And with saying those things like that, what makes this even more of an amazing subject is just think about how long it took transforming us to who we were then. We're talking, well, in your case, you said like 30. So the 30 years. So in my case, I kind of went astray around, I would say 16, 17, all the way to into my 40s. So another 30 years span there. So how long it took that? Look how quickly, after you got saved, after I rededicated, look how quickly the transformation started reversing the process right off the bat.
Right.
And that speaks volumes, because that means, God's transformation is a lot stronger than the world's transformation.
Yeah, I've got a story. I might have shared this before, and I don't want to give any names, but I used to work at a place, and it was the place I was working when I got saved. I don't need to mention where that was or what it was. It's been years ago, but the point is that somebody there, a young lady, knew who I was before. She'd seen me, and then I got saved, and I transformed enough within a few months that she actually came to me for advice about her dad, who was a pastor. So within just a
Wow.
few months, I mean, we're talking about 6 months, I had changed enough that she felt like she could talk to me about her problems with her dad.
Wow. And it's like I was telling you, that coworker that I have at work, that there's the two girls in the shipping office. Of course, I used to work in that department, so I knew them real well already. Well, they knew the part of me that wasn't always nice.
Mm-hmm.
I would get mad at work real easy at the dumbest little things, and I was always getting frustrated. We're not getting paid enough to do this and all that kind of stuff. As soon as I went through my, I'm going to say, first part of my transformation, because I'm not sure I really don't think my transformation is completed. I think he's still working on it. But as soon as I went through my first part, she noticed instantly. One of the girls in the shipping office, she noticed instantly. She's like, "You don't seem like the same person at all."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Really?" And she goes, "No, you're completely different." She goes, "I can tell that you went Christian." And I was like, "Yeah." I said, "I went back to it, yes." And she's like, "It shows. It shows all over you." I took that as one of the biggest compliments
Yeah.
I had ever been paid in my life.
Yeah.
And then my mom mentioned that my brother was over at the house, and he had said the same thing to her about, because he works out there, and he had seen how I would get frustrated and mad and stuff all the time, to what I went to, and he told her the same thing. She said, "Yeah, your brother noticed right off the bat too." So I was like, "Wow, okay." So
Yeah.
it was kind of affirmation of transformation. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but it did, so we just have to deal with it.
Let's go with it. Yep.
Yeah, just roll with it. Um, but yeah, in that aspect, it was almost like one of the Transformers from the movie, switching from one thing to the other, just like that. But,
Yeah.
and the only reason I said the Transformers transformation wasn't right is because they transform to blend in. We're
Right.
supposed to transform to stand out.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
a slight difference. Maybe when they transform the other way into a robot, that would be the better transformation.
There you go.
Yeah, there. So okay, you can like the Autobots still then. Not the Decepticons, but the Autobots you can still like them.
Yeah, and incidentally, I used to have a 2013 Camaro, and
wow.
and it was black, and so I had a specialized license plate that said Black B.
Oh
on it.
yeah.
Because
I used to have the toys. I remember the
Yeah,
Optimus Prime and
Yeah.
Trailhawk and all these different little Transformer toys. I'm not sure what happened to him. I think my little brother broke a bunch of them. I know he took a bunch of my G.I. Joes, and he found out that you could pull their bodies apart and they're put together with rubber bands.
Yep.
And he would take them apart and switch all their bodies, the top of their bodies, with the legs of the other ones.
Yeah.
And that used to bug me. I remember that. Anyway, that was a trip down memory lane rabbit hole. But
Yep.
anyway, I don't need to take too many more of those. Well, those are the good memories, though.
Yeah.
The memories, like I remember my mom had this little whipping rod thing that we would get switched with. And boy, that just a couple little whacks on the back of the thighs right there. And it was, so I remember one day, my little brother was still young. I broke it up and put it in these little pill bucket. And I was like, "You could go play Barry, go play Barry, go bury this." And he goes out there with his little shovel in the backyard and buries it. And I don't think she ever found out. I think I ended.
You just told her.
I told her here, but I told her before too, because at one point she was wondering whatever happened to that, and I kind of confessed up and told her.
Yeah.
I told her that my little brother buried it. Now that I mention it, I don't think that I told her I broke it up into little pieces, but now she knows. So, cat's out of the bag. No, I'm pretty sure I told her that. So I wasn't the best of kids, but I was a little bit of trouble a lot of times, but I like to think there was a destination I was going with that. I was learning the hard lessons so I could get them out of the way, I think. Get the wild side out. So, seeing some of the kids nowadays, they need more of those whipping switches. That's what they need. We got some kids that will come up and down the street here in town, and some of the language that comes out of their mouth and some of the, man.
Yep.
So, yeah, Tahlequah can get a little bit crazy sometimes. Overall, Tahlequah is a great place to live, though. I mean, most of the time, people leave you alone. We've got friendly neighbors. You can actually hold the door to a convenience store for somebody and they'll say thank you.
Yeah.
And I've lived at places where that's not the case. I've lived in places where I don't think they've ever heard the word thank you, let alone use it.
Yeah.
But I know I got off subject again. And I really wanted to go somewhere with it, what I was doing there. Lost my train of thought. It's a little bit cooler in here tonight, but it's
still hot.
Still hot.
Yeah.
And we do have to maybe not go quite so long so we can go tend to your Jeep.
Yeah, we have to rescue my Jeep.
Yeah. So, got to do that. Next week is what's going to be interesting, because next week I'm going to have, and matter of fact, I think a couple of I think the girls in the shipping office are going to write some topics on paper for me to bring in too. So they was throwing all sorts of ones out there, forgiveness, kindness, all these kinds of things. I was like, well, write them all down. I'll put them in a hat. We'll draw them and we'll see what we come up with. So I might not have a fun fact for everything, but I don't have to have a fun fact for everything. Sometimes it'll just come to you. I've been around, I've lived long enough, I probably have an experience or two that comes into play. I know I probably have an experience or two that comes into play. But next week we're going to do that. We're just going to draw out of a hat. Whatever topic we draw, that's what we're going to go on. And we want people to comment and give us their ideas for topics too. Because if it works out, I think that's the style we're just going to start doing, because I think it's more fun not knowing what I'm going to say until I get there.
I can be surprised.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good off the cuff usually.
Well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm not even going to look at what we're drawing until we get here and pull it out, and then.
Yeah.
So I might know what all topics are in there, but I won't know which one we're going to pull, so I won't. It's not one of those things where I'll be sitting around during that week preparing like a sermon or something, preparing what I'm going to, my thoughts and everything.
Right.
Of course, I'm always thinking about those things anyway, so. Chances are it's ran through my head anyway. Bunch of thoughts. Anyway, it's hot. We have to rescue a Jeep. I don't know if we covered. I think we covered transformation pretty well. What it is, what it means, um, how it can be a bad thing, how it can be a good thing. Yeah, I think we pretty much covered.
Yeah.
So we're going to sign off here, and next week we start the mystery topic. And you might want to stick around and see one of those just to see how it goes. So until then, God bless. Take care of one another out there, and we'll see you next week.
See y'all.